Sarah Snell Cooke, your host here at the Credit Union Connection. I'm here today with two fabulous gentlemen. On my left is Matt Wilson. He is the CIO at Utah Community Credit Union. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Cool. Very cool to have you as well. And so, John Best, you're a repeat offender. John Best is the founder of Best Innovation Group. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here, Sarah. Nice to talk again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you guys just a half a second here to better introduce yourselves and your organizations. Matt, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I am Matt Wilson with Utah Community Credit Union. We are a $3.5 billion credit union in Utah, based out of Provo, Utah. We serve the community here and in many SEG groups around the state, but have been around since about 70 years now.
Very nice. Always great to hear the legacy credit unions, and they're still thriving and relevant.
Right.
John,
Hi.
I don't know. I think everybody knows you, but go ahead.
That's not true. My name's John Best, and I've been working in credit unions my entire life. We started big in 2014 with the purpose of sort of helping credit unions continue to grow and look at innovation. And here we are, still doing innovating things 10 years later. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, 10 years, making it 10 years in a business is awesome.
Yeah, I am, I remember someone who won't be named said, "You'll be back." And so,
Yeah, you did it out of spite. I know.
yeah, I'm not going back even if I have to live in a box under the overpass.
Exactly. I'm 8 years in, so not too far behind.
I remember when you went.
Yeah. I've been around cranes for 26 years now. I don't know when I got that old that I needed these damn things, but so John, I'm going to start with you. One of the toughest parts of a merger is the technology. And so that's one of the things we're going to talk about is the Utah Community Credit Union and TransWest Credit Union merger that occurred this year. But first start off in general with technology. How can credit unions better prepare when they're in this merger situation?
Yeah, so it's funny because having done so many of these over the years, and I've done them in every way you can think of, banks, creating the credit union, just a branch here, boutique mergers, which were really interesting, where we kept the branding of the original credit union intact, and so it was like a powered by this credit union, but yet the original naming and branding stayed in place. I think the biggest thing is to have your own house in order with regards to products, services, and understanding sort of what your strengths are, and also with your people. I think that's the other side of it, because the technology is a difficult portion of it, but the people part of it is just as important and just as difficult. And they really kind of go hand in hand because it's a tremendous effort. It's like a conversion, really, in a short time, and it can be it can be stressful. But I think having your house in order, particularly around your products and services, your own achievement, your own card services, all those things, really having a solid plan, like hey, we're not going to be introducing some new card and doing a conversion right after we do this or that. There's a good schedule and understanding what where this fits into your model and what you're going to do in your business plan.
Yeah. Project management is huge.
It
Not
is.
strong suit, but and I understand how huge it is because of that. Matt, so how do you think cranes can better prepare from your perspective? And what did you learn during the process?
Oh, wow, I learned quite a bit, and I was fortunate enough to come in after this had all been decided. So I was started with Utah Community just at the beginning of the year, just as we started this whole conversion, and it was great. And to John's point, having a team in place that just is solid and knows exactly what they're doing, from cards to core to account products and all that kind of stuff. It was a game changer. There's no way we could have done it in the time period that we did without a solid team in place, not just on the Utah community side, but on the incoming TransWest side as well. They had to have, they needed to know what was on their side so that we could easily convert and map product to product and know what we're doing with each member at that institution. So yeah, the team needed to be focused, and the team needed to know what was their responsibilities, and I think that's where we started off on a really good foot.
Yeah, yeah. Organizing, preparing, got to be the first thing in every kind of project to do. So you guys completed this core conversion in just 5 months. And I'm going to start with John first, but how? I know everybody's like, what the hell? Like, how?
Well, okay, I'm going to go back to Matt's point. How is it was the amazing team at UCCU. I got to give props to Christy and all the folks there that were just amazing. So we can come in. I like to say big is this tool where we're like the old BASF commercials. Remember those? We don't make X, we just make X better. So we're the kind of group, we're not coming in to help you figure out the board seats or anything like that. We're purely focused on how do we get transition these assets from one side to the other in the most efficient and effective way that benefits both sides. And to Matt's point, having a great team was the beginning point. The second part was we had just come off a fantastic merger before with United Credit Union, who also had a fantastic team. And we had just gone through that process end to end. And it was a little longer, but not much, so we're shortening it as we go along. But the other side of it was finding these straightaways, right? Finding these opportunities where we could put some new tools in place, i.e., AI, like we talked about, not just for the for the products, which was a big part of it, but also even some of the custom programming that had to be done. And we couldn't do that without the knowledge set, from Utah and from TransWest. If we hadn't had both of those, your own the AI is only as good as the questions you asked it. It's like a shovel and a backhoe. You might think you can dig a hole faster with a backhoe, but not if you don't know how to use it. And so what they did was they gave us the effort, not only that, but the creativity. And they were really focused in on being open to these new ideas and how we do things and getting these things done, and the faith and trust that they had. So that was, to me, that was the biggest part. But you know, helping them to understand the art of the possible, I think, was also a big part of it. I think because he had such a good team, and the way we do things is we're not a black box. We don't go off somewhere and come back and go, here you go. We turn on the screens and say, this is the way we're thinking it'll go. What do you think? And get that input. And I think that fostered trust and teamwork, which was a big part of it. But finding those straightaways and having them pointed out, where once Matt's staff understood the art of the possible, the Cades, the Christies of the world, then they could go, oh, what you did with that, could we do that with this? And that's where it took off. And so that was really extremely important to the process.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think it's great that the team started feeling like they owned the project. It sounds like, because they're asking, well, and getting creative too, asking, well, if ABC works here, then can it work there? That's great. I mean, Matt, do you have anything you want to add to what John was just talking about?
It really is. It's that cohesiveness together, right? And I will say that while we had great teams on the two credit unions coming together, there's no way we could have done this without Big either. I mean, just the time frame alone, right? We had a dedicated team to it, right? Everybody kind of didn't drop everything else. We still had business as usual. We were still fulfilling the responsibilities each of us had here, but then we also added to it this conversion. Well, we offset that with Big and their group and the great team they have. So all three of those together, just we were able to knock it out of the park. And I couldn't be happier. We couldn't be happier with the end results.
Yeah,
One
great.
other thing, Matt, I was thinking was, and this was something we learned from United as well, was really taking advantage of the state-of-the-art tech with regards to communication. We heavily use Teams. In the past, when you can remember, and Sarah, you've been around for this sort of thing, but it used to be, okay, well, on this meeting, the emails will go and we'll talk about it, but we really can't move this or do that. But we realized that creating that interaction where at any point, we could grab a knowledge expert from either TransWest or Utah and ask a question or two. That's what really greases the skids a lot, especially in the AI side, when you're saying, okay, I got this process going, it's gonna go through and finish this, but while I'm starting that, let me get started. It's like a cooking show, right? Where at the end, you're putting a bunch of stuff in the oven, but you're also talking to the audience as you go and trying to pull it together. And just having that communication, I thought was really important, not just from the staff, which was wonderful, but even into lower levels of the staff, they were open. You know, hey, let's go grab this person. Next thing you know, they're in a chat, and this is a person who really understands this small element of something that, because what happens is that a merger is also the art of the obscure. Like, how often do you really dig into trusts, you know, like a trust account and the way it's built and that whole portion? You see them, but they're not frequent. But then you go to convert 40 or 50 of them that have compiled over the years, and you know that expertise on the other on both sides is really important, because you know, you're digging deeply into all the aspects and elements of how a financial institution's run and every financial tool related to that, from credit reports down to how accounts are opened, down to document imaging, down to even, hey, how do your ATMs get filled with money? I mean, it is end to end everything, and that's an important part of it. And we'd actually, over the years, been amassing a lot of details around that in terms of documentation. And that was another area where suddenly AI came into play, at least on my side, where I went, you know, used to be they grabbed me on a call and I just sort of rattled this stuff off. I'm getting old, so I'm starting to forget things. And I went, one day I went, I'm going to grab every one of these documents and train an AI on it. And I sat down and did it, and it's paid big dividends, because what it helps is thinking through all of the what ifs. But then you get the people like what, you know, Utah have, where they're able to go, oh, wait, when we're in stand-in, it's going to be this, and there's going to be these floating transactions afterwards. And you know, they got someone really smart who knows, you know, Jason or whoever, to do this or do that. That adds even more, you know, even more expertise to the database, in the sense that, oh, okay, we can plan for that. Whereas I think oftentimes those are sort of grenades you find afterwards. And you know, you're never going to get all the way through and you know, at the done go, woo, we're done, everybody go home. That's just not, it's just too many variables. But the closer you can get to that, the more counts that you keep around when they move over, which I really loved that Utah was so open in their communication with us and the incoming members, and really cared about the other credit union. You could feel that. Those are the types of mergers we really enjoy. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, wow. Communication's important. How about that? Tell my husband.
Who knew?
Well, and I think that's a good point, John, is, you know, sometimes we get used to the day-to-day interactions and the communication platforms we use and the technology, but really the friction that we removed, right? The secure repository for files and file sharing and being able to bring on an expert into a chat session real quick. I mean, those things really did help accelerate it.
Yeah, it takes something that's like 3 days and moves it to an hour or less.
Right. And we were able to respond quickly and move as quickly as needed as we had those topics come up and those discussion points come up, like you said. So.
And by the way, just the tech is great, but then you add the people who are willing to do the heck. Poor Christy, God knows, we'd be, hey, you think she'd answer? Yeah. Let's not do it. Well, we really need to know. Okay, let's do it. And maybe Kay, Christy, so many of them that would, even the folks from TransWest, they were just amazing. And I think when you streamline that communication, and then on top of that, you're able to really gather this information, because you know, you get a much more contextualized thing happening in chat, because there's screenshots, there's all this other stuff that's useful to the engagement that really helps you to grow it. So I completely agree. I think that was a driving force behind this, was how do you build a team? You put it this way, if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're going to need a good front line and a lot of good blocking and tackling. And that's what we brought, you know, that's what they brought to the table with us. And we were able to just sort of run right behind them and find the holes, you know, and that's what we look for. Because we don't, you know, we're not a huge company. Big's only 12 people. And we've done 3 of these in the last 18 months, and we're on track to do 4 more. And that's a lot for our size, because if you go to any of the big players right now, they'll go, sure, we can do that in 2028. And unfortunately, the industry is compressing faster than that. And not everybody has the resources and the capability of doing this. So yeah, I think that's a tremendous opportunity. The other thing is, I want to praise, and I didn't do this, Matt, the reason all that happened is because your infrastructure team was so fantastic. that's usually an area where I do spend a lot of time, sometimes with particularly the smaller credit unions. They're being merged in, the mergee, if you will. If that's the correct term, Sarah, you would know better than I. But, helping them with their Office 365 and their teams and all that. But man, both Utah and United, they just both had fantastic infrastructure teams that just took all of that off the table. It wasn't hard getting in the VPNs, stuff that normally is really difficult for a vendor. And we didn't feel like vendors, we felt like partners. So we felt part of the team. And that's what we try to foster at Big as well, because there's no other way to do it.
Right, right. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Great
Go
team.
ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say great
Oh.
teams all around. I again inherited them all, and they are fantastic.
Yeah.
No, they're not right behind him either in that blur with any kind of weapons or anything.
Oh, no.
I've seen him without the blur. It's just him. They're not threatening him at all. He's not forced to say any of that. So.
Now, and what I'm also hearing you say though is you also end up with better, not just faster, but better results because you're getting the people involved who are closer and closer to the member, right? I mean, that's what I think is going on, Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that, one of the things you were unfolding, imagine you packed a suitcase 20 years ago and now you've got to unpack it and you're moving to the new house and, you open it up and go, well, what were these for? And why did I have it done this way? And what was this? And what was that? And, that's hard. But like I said, you're touching things that just have been sort of collecting as rote, finance or financial tools and accounts for years, and understanding how they came together, because at some point, what happens with mergers, if you don't have the staff like we have and they have and what we did, is you get to this Titanic point where, hey, the lifeboats are there, let's just start shoving people on them, and you start to clear the decks. And a lot of things can get left behind, and that's where the member satisfaction goes down. And then what's the point of the merger if you don't retain, the benefit of, growing the co-op and creating new opportunities for both them and the incoming credit union. And so being able to to have this other stuff kind of off the table and not be behind the 8 ball allows for more time to unravel these more complex things. That truly exist. They're 10% of they're 10% of the accounts, but they're 50% of the work, and I think that's the magic sauce right there. Secret sauce. Magic sauce is a different thing. You can only get that in Colorado, I think, and Utah's not Colorado. So.
Well, it is key, and members are behind the whole thing, right? That's the whole purpose of it. And I think the incoming credit union TransWest, they knew that, the board knew that. They wanted to take care of their members, and part of that was the purpose of the merger. And so we wanted to bring them into the Utah community family as seamless and painless as possible. And no merger, no system conversion is perfect. But the feedback, the member experience, we feel like we did pretty good. There's always room for improvement, of course, but for the most part, I think the members have been fairly happy and satisfied. So.
Yeah, because that's like you said, that's the whole point anyway, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that you brought up, John, a second ago was your use of AI. Explain a little bit about how you used it to I guess, program this
Sure.
project.
So, first of all, everybody freaks out. I'm not taking all the credit union's member data and jamming it into ChatGPT and saying, let's go. It's not that at all. What we discovered is that there's a lot of things that local AI, so products like I don't know if people know this, but you can get a very powerful AI to run locally on I have this little Mac Air here that can run an AI even when it's not plugged into the internet. It's more than capable, and it can tell you about string theory, it can tell you a lot of stuff. Here's the thing though, I don't need for a merger it to know about string theory. That's not its capable purpose. I just need an AI that's smart enough that understands financial services and systems. So the process that I started to look at, where we really put a lot of time into it, was twofold. One was, the first part of it was mapping products. how do we go through and if put it this way, you start with both sides products. First step is even get them just quantified. Like, okay, what are the characteristics of this account? Particularly in this case where we had two separate types of systems. You had DNA and XP2, two very different systems that have very different types of account structures. So first step is, okay, I got to get this big pile of accounts and I sort of have to find some common ground with what the slots that are available over here. And so that's actually a lot of work for someone to sit down and do. And it takes an expert. But what I kind of said was, hey, I could kind of envision a process. And I tried to do this years ago. You know me, I'm always trying. I tried to do this like in 2018 with some AI and it just didn't work because it really got down to being machine learning, which is it's still AI, but a different process. And it was just too complex for me to get through that it was diminishing returns in terms of the time it would take me and the amount of time it would take to do it manually. That's always the game in a merger is, could we type all those in or can we do it programmatically? And what people don't understand is one account versus 500 programmatically is kind of the same if you're accommodating for all the different things that can happen. So step one was, hey, I can use AI to just quantify these things and start to get them closer together to say, hey, these kinds of accounts go over here. Maybe not one-to-one yet, but I know that I can sort of get these together. And instead of taking a week or two to do that, I can get myself there in a day or two. Okay, next step is, all right, now that I've got them sort of sorted and I know that these go here and these go here and these go here, because remember, you're talking about two separate systems that there's all these different flavors and features in DNA versus XP2. And that's also where our expertise comes in, having grown up in this world where we wrote home banking, before we, in another life, everybody at Big had done that sort of thing for all these different cores. So we know most of these cores pretty well. So finding our way through that process to get everything kind of laid out where, okay, products, we know where all the products are going to go and what the services or which ones are going to get mapped into which. That's step one. And using AI to just, if I can get you to 70% closer and you start from 70%, that's a big dividend. You're getting a big payout from that rather than starting at zero in terms of time. And here's the thing, that's the bottleneck, right? Before you can start putting fingers on keyboard to say, we're going to start writing the transformation of these files over here, you got to know how it all maps. And if that takes 3 or 4 weeks or a month to get it right, that's all the time you lose before you start putting fingers on keyboard, to start mapping this, because it's not like you can finish certificates and just get going. You have to start off with the accounts, the account structure, the types of accounts, the socials, the emails. Where are your emails? I don't know. Half of them are on home banking. Half of them are here. Half of them are there. There's a lot of that. So using AI to just crunch that down. No member data. This is just where everything is. Let me do my best to try to figure out and map all this for these accounts to get everything going. So that step was really helpful. That's where I started. The next step was, okay, I got this close. Let me see if I can get further. Let me see if I can take the characteristics of these accounts. These are my available opportunities, and these are the things I got to sort into it. And see if the AI can do a good comparison on them to tell me what's the likelihood that this, of all these accounts, what's the likelihood that this one will work with this one. And so at the end of the day, we were able to produce these reports. They weren't perfect. They're getting better every time, but they weren't perfect because the prompts weren't perfect. But again, if you start off at 70%, you're way ahead of the game, especially if you have talent like what Matt has on his team. Because not only did they look at it and go, oh, good, I'm halfway there, but they came back and said, hey, could you add, because we'd share what we did, they go, could you add this to it? That'd probably get it to do it this way. I was like, oh, okay, so we make those changes. So that was one big piece of it. And then the next piece was the programming. We all know that these things are doing really well at coding. It's the big surprise of AI is that it's not going to take your meatpacking job. It's going to take the coder's job, right? But that's not really true either, because what's happened is just one coder is now 10 coders, but Matt's expectation from one coder now has gone up as well. So it's all kind of the same. The boats all wound up leveling out at the end. But being able to take those characteristics and those mappings, and we actually developed a system internally that we started saying, look, here's all the commonalities. We use COFX. You may remember that. COFX is something we wrote we were involved in being part of when I used to be in the credit union space and developing. And basically it's a standard that it maps at attempts, a lot of work was put into it, attempts to create a normalization of the credit union, the standard credit union data structure. So by using that, we now have this middle ground where the AI has some definition, and that's really important. So now we can say, okay, here are all the fields I got coming from here and what they look like based on what I know. And here are all the fields that are coming from here based on what I know. If I give them the CFX, then I can take it to anything on the other side. So that was kind of the mentality. I don't know if any of that makes sense or if anybody's
A little, somewhat, yes.
There's a lot of
For
this involved if you didn't
yeah.
notice. And
yeah.
And we used a lot of these. This was just a lot of that, you know. But no, I knew the fear is member data, right? That's everybody's fear. But I didn't care. I knew that wasn't pumping a bunch of member data into it's not going to be helpful. What we needed to do was figure out how to write the code efficiently to do the extracts and be able to push them into the system and do it much faster than we normally do. But step one is you can't even begin to code until you know what goes where. So you can see how that compressed everything down. That's my answer. And we couldn't have done all that without the incredible talent of, I want to go back and give United their props too. We just started working on, I took that merger job going, okay, I'll do it, but only if you let me use the AI. And United said, heck yeah. And I went, oh, really? Okay. And then I told the same thing to Utah and they said, heck yeah. And I went, wow, that's 2 for 2. Okay. Normally when I gave my crazy ideas, they go, oh, we'll get back to you. And, we don't hear from them. So yeah, that's how it evolved.
Yeah, Matt, I know you kind of walked into the middle of this whole conversation as far as like the merger and the tech conversions and stuff. What did you all have concerns about involving AI? I mean, heck yeah, you can use it, but I mean, there's got to be questions, if not from you and the people in your team who really better understand it, at least from a CEO or CFO or somebody like that.
Yeah, there's always questions, right? When you're doing something new. But fortunately, our CEO was the former CIO, so he had a great
okay.
background, understood things, and was in the process. He's the one that selected Big as well, so he knew all those things and had a great understanding and really looked forward. You can't move quickly if you're not willing to take some risk on new technology and new ways of doing things. And that was one of them. And it worked in our favor on this one for sure. Great.
I actually think we could go faster on the next one. And I think your team.
Well, we joke about that, can we get it from 5 months to 3 months and we get some crazy stares at that point, but
Then you might
yeah.
actually have somebody with the letter opener behind
Right.
you.
But that's every day for me. So I don't even
get used to that. But yeah. It was phenomenal how it all turned out. And always looking back, yeah, everything was answered and done well for us. So it mitigated those questions and those risks that we had. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, 'cause I think
and I'll say
John's
this
point.
too, from our perspective is, man, I don't say enough about my team. The guys I've been working with for 30 years. They've all been we started out as, there's a TJ Maxx up the road where I met 2 of them. The third one's been with us for 20 years, but we're keeping an eye on him. But those guys, they're database nuts, and they're open to new ideas. And so having that and sort of the culture that we have at Big and the innovation, and then someone like Justin, who was great, where the thing about Big is we're not a black box. We're not coming in and going, okay, we have this process. We can't tell you about it, but this is what we're going to do. Give us your data. Our opinion is we're part of your team. We have an idea. This is how we think we could pull it off. What do you guys think? And we work together on it. And those tools continue to evolve. But, and then I work on them in the downtime too, because I just love those puzzles. I'll give you an example. This was one I was telling Matt about earlier, and I just talked to a Creighton today, and I showed him a little bit about how we went about this process that I just explained to you. He said, where were you? Because he just had a merger that failed. Like, they got all the way through, it was all approved, but the Creighton voted it down. And the reason it got voted down was they couldn't find a way to make everybody whole with all the benefits and all of that. And he said there was just this incredibly complex spreadsheet of here's their benefits, here's our benefits. Sound familiar? And this and that. And I thought, oh, I probably could figure that out. Like it sounded like another puzzle. I don't want to figure out the puzzle. I just like figuring out how to figure out the puzzle. So I was like, oh, I wish I'd seen that. So that's another round, Matt. You know, I was thinking about that. Like that's another area where I think it could be applied because it's fantastic. It's sort of figuring out those sorts of benefits. And a lot of effort is being put in recently to create these models that really do understand benefits, HR, because that's the first place a lot of people have went in terms of deploying AI, is deploying these agents and services that help the employees understand their benefits, maybe fill out forms, tell them how PTO works, those sorts of things. And you're seeing the big players like Workday all get involved in that. So I think there's some opportunity in just even further up the stream than when we get involved in during the process of like, hey, we're thinking about this, let's figure out what it looks like. I think there's even some more opportunity to engage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was actually, Matt, I wanted to go to you and ask about how did you prepare your team and your members, and I guess that's two different questions, for any potential hiccups that might come along. The MSR who has a member ranting at them on the phone or whatever, how did the credit union prep your team and as well as the members?
Yeah, there was a lot. Again, it goes back to the team structure, right? Making sure we've got good people, and we have great people here. But training was involved from the very beginning, right? So we were able to inform our employees, hey, these are the things that are happening. They're learning systems so that they both the new system and the old systems, um, and being able to understand where the new members are coming from, right? What their experience has been, so they could help answer the questions when it comes to day one with Utah Community. And so they were involved up front and helped with that. There were communications on a weekly basis. We had huddles with all the groups together. Hey, these are the pain points we're seeing. These are the potential gotchas. We walked through those, talked through those. People would pick up on their responsibilities, and hey, we'll put some training together for that. We'll discuss what are the options that we can do. How can we handle this? How can we communicate it? And then communicating to existing members was one thing, and fairly minimal and simple. But communication to the incoming members was critical, right? I don't know if you can ever do too much communication. Maybe you can, but there was always something, and as fast as we were going, there was always something else to be communicating about. So we had to be able to consolidate it and put it into uh, consumable pieces for them. But I think overall, just having that team together, having those weekly huddles and discussion points helped us internally be able to make those external communications easier and better.
Mm-hmm. All righty, gentlemen. Well, we have run well over time, which is totally fine because this has been a very interesting discussion. I always give my guests the final thoughts to close out. And I'm going to go to John first, Matt, so you can close us out direly. John, any final thoughts you want to leave our credit union audience with?
Yeah, I think the two things is just the first one is explore and train, create a culture of being inquisitive, and get get your staff involved, even if it's just with Microsoft Copilot. I saw a credit union the other day that was running a cool little thing where they had everybody having it create pictures. Whoever could come up with the coolest credit union mascot or something. Just any kind of use of the AI is going to be helpful for everybody understanding what the art of the possible is. I think that's really important. And then the second one is I do think that cranes are going to have to start thinking about from an org structure, AI for one thing, and for another mergers, M&A. I can remember a time when there used to be some cranes that had a formalized M&A structure, but I think that a lot of growth in seeing the success of Utah. I think there's going to be a lot more of this, and so we've got to continue to figure out, because I'd like to see these credit unions really, I think, I don't want to keep losing credit unions, and the best way to do that is for them to find partners like Utah that want to keep the culture and the credit union philosophy intact.
All righty. And Matt? send us home.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. There's a lot going on in the credit union industry and the financial industry, right? And there's a lot of regulations and other things that are troubling and hard to keep up with. And there may be a consolidation is more consolidations going forward in the future. And to John's point, let's don't be afraid of it, right? Put some teams together and things are possible. And and then you get credit unions. We love the credit union philosophy, and that's what we live for. We want to serve the members, we want to help the members, and we want to make it best for them. And I think that's how we continue on with that credit union philosophy, as John was talking about. But technology is awesome as well. Utilize it, embrace it, and move forward with it, and life will be better and easier for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your days.
Thank you, Sarah.